Well, it's that time of year again. 2024 deer camp, it's over with. It was a great week. I don't really even know where to start. But you know what they say, when you don't know where to start,
go back to the beginning.
So stick around. Well, for us, deer camp, we usually head up the week before gun opener here in Michigan, and we bow hunt the week before, and then we hunt opening day and then the day afterwards, and then we head back home. So for me, that week of deer camp started November 9th. So that Saturday morning, November 9th, got the truck all loaded up and made the 2.5-hour trek up to deer camp. It is definitely one of my favorite times of year. Always look forward to deer camp.
I think I look forward to opening day of deer season more than any other day of the year. It's like Christmas with guns. Hello! Hello!
So we pulled into deer camp, and as soon as we pulled into deer camp, me and my brother-in-law Jeff packed up all of our stuff and ended up heading out to the state land where we were going to set up to hunt for the evening. All right, it's November 9th. Jeff and I are headed out for our first deer camp hunt of the season. It's supposed to be some rain tomorrow. So we're hoping for some good deer movement. Dad says that the bucks are gonna be moving, so we might just tag out tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be insane, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Tagged out, we're done on the first day. Well, I mean, that's 12 deer right there. For me, anyway, I got 10 doe tags, 2 buck tags.
Oh boy.
Think the truck can handle that kind of weight?
I don't know. Maybe not through this hole.
Holy cow.
They're nice and slow. Ooh, okay.
Hello.
Shooting guns today.
Sighting in, I guess.
I ended up putting up a trail camera earlier in the year on this really hot trail that was crossing the road. And when I got there, I was all excited to check that trail camera out and quickly learned that the guy who set that trail camera up had forgotten to format the SD card. So it had 0 pictures on it. What stinks is there was a fresh rub about 5 yards in front of that trail camera, so it would have definitely had some really cool footage. But either way, I ended up setting up my saddle along that trail and hunted the very first night. We're here on Michigan public land, and I'm set up in a spot I've never sat before. I came in earlier this year and found a nice trail that crosses this road. I put a trail camera up there, and just drove in just a little bit ago. Went to check the trail camera, and some idiot didn't format the SD card, I'm guessing. Be this guy. And have 0 videos. But there's a fresh scrape right on a tree about 5 yards in front of that camera. Unfortunately, that path goes down into some super thick stuff where there's no trees, no shot or anything. So I'm set across the road where that trail leads out to, where I've got some open shooting lanes. And that night, my brother-in-law Jeff put down the very first deer of deer camp. After I got done tearing down my saddle setup, took the trip on over to where my brother-in-law was hunting and helped him get that all gutted, loaded up in the truck, and back to deer camp we went. So Sunday morning, it ended up raining, so we ended up doing one of our favorite things, is making our annual trip to Northwoods Outdoors and Frank's Great Outdoors. So we went over there and did a little bit of shopping and stuff while we waited for the rain to stop. After that rain died down, we ended up going out that afternoon and hunting the whole rest of the day from about 9 o'clock on through the rest of the day. So after the rain stopped, we ended up going out and hunting the whole rest of the afternoon. Jeff and I sat in the same tree, which is one of our favorite things to do. We sit back to back in tree stands and ended up having an encounter with a cool little 6-point, and he ended up coming in on Jeff's side of the tree. I swung the camera around to try and get this all on video, but really just had an awkward angle. Didn't really catch much footage of the deer, but it was an intense, probably about 15 minutes. That deer just kind of stood there at about 42 yards, just kind of figuring out what he was going to do. We kept looking off in the other direction. I don't think he ever winded us, but ended up just kind of slowly turning around and walking away, but still was a really cool encounter. Later on in the evening, we ended up having 4 does that came in probably about 80 yards away that we really had no chance at shooting, but still that was a really cool encounter. And then ended up having 2 does that ended up sneaking up behind me. I never heard them till they were about 30 yards away, and I got the camera on them and had grabbed my crossbow and was ready to shoot, but she caught all the motion or winded us or something. The wind was kind of blowing a little their direction, winded us, and they jumped out real quick and just took off. But still was a really cool encounter. So Sunday, we ended up seeing 7 deer total. So that was just a successful hunt in my book. We saw a lot of cool encounters with deer. So that was a cool day. Well, Monday morning, Jeff and I packed up all of our stuff and decided we were doing an all-day sit because we just thought that the action was going to be really good for us. Because the spot that we've got on the state land, we've had really, really good success. So we were really looking forward to Monday. Unfortunately, Monday was a total dud for us. We didn't see a single deer the entire day. So Monday night ended up being so windy that we ended up packing it up. It had 20-mile-an-hour winds, and after the second tree around us had fallen over, we decided it was time to get out of the tree. Plus, it was Veterans Day anyway, and my brother-in-law, Jeff, that I was hunting with, is a retired disabled Coast Guard chief. So it was time to take him out for dinner and celebrate Veterans Day anyway. All right, so editing Jeremy here. Left out a couple of points. So Monday night, Ryan surprised us with driving up to camp. He wasn't supposed to come till Tuesday, ended up showing up Monday night, and we proceeded to have one of our favorite things that we have at deer camp, and we call it story time. And what it is we tell our stories about our hunts, and we make everybody get up to the front of the room and then tell their story. Everyone else can ask questions, and we kind of give everyone just gives that person up front their attention. And it's just kind of a cool thing we do at deer camp. It's definitely one of our favorite times. Every night we end up telling all of our stories, and throughout the day we kind of tend to keep our hunts a little bit of a secret and share it all at story time. So. Well, Tuesday morning came around and me and Jeff were both out in the stand, and I ended up hearing a noise. Wasn't exactly sure what that noise was, but knew it probably was a deer. And it ended up being a buck, and it was actually a really nice 6-point buck that it ended up coming in. Unfortunately, I was so excited I didn't get any of this on camera, but that buck came in to about 24 yards, and I had my crossbow and was ready to shoot, and I really should have waited for him to take another step or two. And I think what ended up happening was that arrow ended up hitting a branch on the way in and deflecting. I felt like it was a really good shot, but what we ended up finding is the arrow busted into two pieces. The way I've not seen one before. It was very weird that it broke right here, and there is still hair and a little bit of blood. Jeez, let me focus on this here. It broke in a very weird way. And this is the arrow. Never cleaned it up or anything. Never saw any real blood on this, except for there is a little bit of hair and blood right there on the arrow. This was buried all the way into the dirt that was there. And I had a Grim Reaper broadhead on it, and the broadhead did not appear to have any blood or anything on it. It was extremely weird. I should also say that there was some blood and stuff and hair right here between the fletching and stuff. Right here between the fletching and the arrow. We ended up finding blood, and we've tracked that blood for over 500 yards. And it ended up, by the time we were getting to the 500-yard mark, it was actually really good blood. And it was a really decent trail. Unfortunately, we'd waited about 3 hours, and we ended up kicking that buck out of his bed. And unfortunately, he was going deep into some private land that we didn't have permission to track on. The people weren't home to get permission on, so unfortunately we had to kind of give up on that deer. Not really sure if it was a fatal wound or not. We think we may have seen him later on in the week, but to hear the rest of that, you're gonna have to keep sticking around. So Wednesday morning, Jeff and I hunted in separate stands, but we were only probably about 150 yards away from each other. We had heard a doe blowing, and she was blowing the way I've never heard before. She probably snorted probably 20 or 30 times in a row, and it was crazy, like I've never heard it before. And then probably about 10 minutes later, she did it again. And shortly after that, I heard some noise and knew that I had a deer coming up my way. And I thought maybe it was that doe, but it ended up being a buck. And it was like a small 4, possibly even a 6-pointer. And it ended up walking by me. I was hoping it was going to come in close enough for me to shoot it with a crossbow, but it didn't. It ended up walking past me. But what was cool is it ended up walking over towards Jeff's stand. And what was cool is Jeff could see it. It ended up bedding down by him, and it bedded down probably about 50 yards from him, and it was probably about 80 yards, 90 yards from me. And what was cool is we could both watch it. And that buck just seemed really lethargic and just tired, exhausted. What we're wondering is if that buck had been breeding that doe and that was just the noise she was making. I don't know. But that buck bedded down for about 15 minutes. Jeff wanted me to use a buck grunt and see what would happen. And that buck, he looked over me after I grunted and really did nothing. Then we tried a doe bleat. And after that doe bleat, he just slowly got up and just slowly turned the other direction and walked away. Never even gave it a second thought, just slowly walked away, which is really weird. So that was some cool interaction, at least, that we had on Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, Jeff and I scouted, and I ended up setting up in a saddle Wednesday evening over a swamp that had some really good buck sign, and we're really hoping it's going to turn out to be a good spot in the future. But it was kind of a cool setup. Set up in a pair of trees that were kind of in a V, used my saddle and set up over there, but didn't see anything Wednesday night. Night hunts for us this year did not pan out very well. So Thursday morning, the 14th, had no action, ended up calling it a morning and heading back to camp, and had some lunch, ended up having our annual knife throwing contest, and ended up pulling out the air bow as well, and had some fun shooting those, throwing knives and shooting the air bow.
Ooh!
Yeah.
There it is.
You can't hit the sign you voted for.
All the time, that's what we do on the water. Oosh.
Oh, that took a chunk of wood off.
The bone. Oh my god.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Come on.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Oh,
I mean, you
what was
go
that?
first.
Was that tickle?
Yeah.
It's an upside down piece of paper.
Like that, huh?
We'll get these two.
Rounded over
Yeah,
one.
this
This
one
one I've used every time so far. I think it's a little bit more accurate.
That's a good idea. So
You can use it.
we'll start taking off
Yeah.
the legs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh! There's still room for improvement. Did this fall out?
Huh?
Did yours fall out?
Took out. He wanted to use that same arrow.
Oh.
Oh,
That's like a tie.
dude, that's like this.
Well, we measured. Oh, you measured.
Yeah.
You measured.
And then we ended up knowing it was going to end up raining all night Thursday night, and we didn't really want to sit out, and ended up setting up in a box blind. And that box blind sat in a really small chunk of woods. Ended up setting up the cameras to see if I could record any action. And as it was starting to get dark, a good-sized doe was headed on her way in, and then the bigger doe ended up coming in behind her. All right, I'm just headed back to deer camp, and I got to tell you, I've been a little convicted this week. As I get into the stand, I realize that I get into the stand and end up thinking like, man, I haven't prayed to God and really asked Him to make this a useful hunt or keep me safe or anything like that until after I've already gotten in the stand, like it's an afterthought. And I've been convicted of that, and I've always thought, like, should I be praying to God for a successful hunt? Just thought, oh, I shouldn't pray for that. But a buddy of mine, Travis Williams, if you pray for him, he was in an accident earlier this year. He's not going to be hunting this season. at least at the beginning of the season. He's had a few podcasts and he's mentioned that. And I felt convicted of that this whole week. Today, on the way out to the stand, as I was driving, it kind of was on my heart, and I was like, I gotta pray. I gotta pray before I go on this hunt. For safety of all the rest of the guys, for safety for my brother-in-law Jeff, who was driving, and just for a good hunt and a successful hunt, which in my mind isn't always getting a deer, but just having cool memories. And I think God blessed that, because not only was I successful in harvesting a really nice sized doe, but it was probably my first clean kill on camera. Had 3 cameras rolling, and I just think God really was convicting me of that, and I answered his convictions that he was giving me, and it turned out really well for me. So I just got to tell you, it was a cool story that came to mind, and I thought I would share that, and I don't think it would be right if I didn't share it. So stick around, because tomorrow is the big day. It's Christmas Day, we call it. It is the big show, opening day of Michigan rifle season. So stick around. And those does ended up catching my scent, I think, because the wind was blowing out a little bit, and everyone else has gotten a deer at this point at camp, except Ryan. And I really had the pressure on. I really wanted to get a deer, and that doe, the big doe, just made one last little step, and she turned to the right just a little bit, enough for me to sneak an arrow in there, and I popped her at probably about 28 yards. Ended up being a really good shot. That Grim Reaper broadhead just tore her open, and she ran about 30 yards, just stopped and fell right over right there. So that was really cool. Ended up getting her. She was a really nice sized doe, so I was super excited, because it's also one of the first kill shots that I have the complete thing on camera, self-filmed, and actually ended up getting that shot on 3 separate cameras, which was really cool. So I was really excited about that.
Pull it up. Go ahead. Good.
And then Friday morning is opening day here in Michigan, and for us, we call it Christmas Day. We play Christmas music, we have a big breakfast, we actually give each other Christmas presents, and just have a lot of fun with it.
I get to pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Help us to all just have an awesome day out there today, and just keep us all safe. Help us all to get big, giant bucks, and bless us food to our body. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's what he's talking about.
That's right, we get to pray. Kamala didn't tell us we couldn't.
Right.
Let's see, Dad.
Mama time.
Mama time.
Mama time.
That's nice, thank you.
Who did the shirt?
I did. Wow.
It's mama.
And then we all head out for an all-day sit for opening day of gun season. So Jeff and his son Bowie ended up heading out and sitting in the stands that were back to back, and I ended up heading out deep into that swamp stand because I had my heart set at that point on a buck. I'd already filled the doe tag and really just had my heart set on a pair of antlers. So I headed out there. Jeff and Bowie hunted those 2 stands, and not too long into the morning, I heard several shots ring out and just knew that it was in their direction. And they had put down 3 does, which was really cool. Between the 2 of them, got 3 does. And then later on, I ended up seeing 5 does that ended up coming in near me, which was really cool. I was set up in the saddle in the same tree and had those 5 does come in. And a couple of them came within probably about 10, 15 yards. They were a little leery. I think they caught a little bit of my movement, but just couldn't pinpoint it. So it was just a really cool hunt, though, for me to be in a spot that we had scouted, and within a day had some action moving through there. I was really tempted to shoot another doe, but the problem is it's a really long drag through some rough terrain, and it really was not going to be worth it for a doe. It was going to have to be a good-sized buck in order for me to drag that thing out. So, and then later on in the morning, Jeff and Isaac ended up putting down a 4th doe. All right, Editing Jeremy back here again. And I need to tell you about the story about this 4th doe. What was really cool was I had gotten down, I was hunting a little ways away from them. I had gotten down and ended up hopping in the truck, driving closer to where they were at. Meanwhile, Bowie stayed up in the stand while Jeff got down to track a couple of their deer. And Jeff told Bowie that, hey, you know, just stay on guard in case there's any deer that come around. You never know. And Bowie kind of thought it was just crazy that he was sitting up there while his dad was just down there roaming around. But lo and behold, as I was walking up, I had spooked a deer towards them. So Jeff had no idea what was going on, but Bowie ended up seeing this doe running around and ended up taking a shot at her and hit her. And to make a long story short, we didn't find her right away, but ended up finding her. So that was the fourth doe, which was kind of a really cool story that, you know, his dad was on the ground and had no idea why he had shot. I heard the gunshot as I was walking up, but had no idea what that was about. I thought they were just finishing off a deer. So really cool story as to how they got that fourth deer. So we got down about 10:30 and ended up having a drag out fest and gut fest where we gutted all those deer, got them all loaded up in my truck, and then ended up eating some lunch and going back out for the evening sit where we went back to our stands, and Jeff ended up shooting another deer. So between Jeff and Bowie, they ended up putting in 5 deer into my truck, and we loaded up that night. So loaded it up, got it back to camp, ended up hanging those things, getting them all ready to process. So I just got down from my spot, and I'm headed back to Jeff and Bowie. Got a big mama. Oh yeah, it's like your own little personal little slaughter fest, huh? Oh, I see that one.
Yeah, the other one's up close to the road. The other one's like 10 feet from the road over there. I don't know where the one is that we just got. You didn't just hear me?
I heard. I texted you.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we were finishing one off.
No. The buck, we found a little bit of hair and like a few drops of blood. But I keep losing the blood trail. I can't keep finding it.
Yeah, what kind of buck was it?
I think it was either at 4 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's seen it. He's seen it coming down that same trail.
Oh, look at that. I think that's hers or the other one's.
Probably the other one that Bruce got.
Dude.
You found the bullet?
Yep.
No way. Bro, that's crazy.
Yeah. Just found the bullet. All the way up by the heart.
Oh, that's on it. Yeah. But no, it's not. It's not the flavor, though. Look at that. That's sweet.
Flip her this way.
Need this stuff for?
Then Saturday morning, the 16th, we all headed back out. Jeff and Bowie stayed back to start processing their deer as they'd had so many deer already. And the rest of us went out back to hunt and unfortunately just had a very uneventful morning. Ended up not seeing any deer. Really was very few shots taken anywhere near us. It was really a quiet opening day and the day after. So we ended up heading back to camp and knew that it was time to start processing because we process all of our own deer. So we began quartering up and cutting and processing, grinding and bagging all of our meat, getting them all put into coolers. And then this afternoon of the 16th, we all headed home. But I tell you what, deer camp was just a total blast. We had a really good time. We had a couple of new guys joining us at camp. We had Bowie, who has been up there before, but this is his first opening day at deer camp, and then Evan, who joined us as well. on opening day. So we just had an absolute blast. We got some deer on the ground, we got meat in the freezers, but more importantly, we had a good time with friends and family and made a lot of memories. And really, that's what deer camp and hunting is all about. It isn't about antlers, while those are great. It's all about the memories with friends and family. That is really what's important to us. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Gonna hopefully get out a few more times this year, and hopefully I've got my eye on a couple of deer. Hopefully those guys have made it through gun season, and I'll be able to get a few more hunts in this year. So as always, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you guys next time. Am I right or am I right?
You got it. You got it. You tell your mother I said hello.